Epoch TV has a new original documentary on the border crisis with on-the-ground footage that's actually pretty shocking. It's the Godaways, the hidden border crisis, and it premieres tomorrow. We have the film's producer, Kay Rubacek, here to speak with us. Hey, Kay Rubacek, thanks for being on Crossroads.
Thanks for having me.
So, Kay, what are the Godaways?
The Godaways is a term that we really need to know about because there's almost 2 million of them that we know of that are probably living in your town anywhere across the US. They've been coming through the border. They are illegal immigrants. These are people who wouldn't be able to come into the country legally, often because they have a criminal background. And these are people coming across the border in so many different ways, but illegal ways. They're called by Border Patrol and authorities Godaways, and that's a term that I really think we want this movie to become a normal term across the country that people are familiar with.
Well, that sounds important because we hear a lot of narratives that kind of mix the whole pool of people together. We hear about migrants, we hear about legal immigrants, and then we hear about illegal immigrants. So how are the Godaways different from the other groups?
So if you think about people who are coming across the border and they're coming in mass numbers and they're very easy to see, and the media will show big groups of people coming to the border. Border Patrol is absolutely overwhelmed by the number of these people coming through. The Biden administration has been encouraging people to come through. But what is happening while we're looking at them is that there's criminals and plenty of other people that have heard that the border's open. And they are coming through because they would not be able to get legal status within this country. So the big groups of migrants to America, they usually have some sort of paperwork or something to prove that in some way they could get immigration status at some point. Some of them will be rejected, others will come through. But those crossing illegally, it's almost certain that they would not get legal status in the US, and that's why they're coming through illegally. But that's a massive population of people now living in the US that we haven't been talking about.
Well, this is important too, because I did my own investigation of the border, and most of what I focused on was the manipulation of the migrant system. People are applying for amnesty and they're discarding their IDs, and they're basically just being trafficked in. When we talk about the buses and the airplanes and just busing and flying people over the country and the NGO involvement, that's one type. Those are the quote-unquote migrants. And yeah, the State Department is coordinating with the UN on that whole system. But one thing I did hear when I was at the border too was that there are people who don't go through that system, and usually there's a reason why they try to avoid it. So, who are these people? Like, what were you finding about them?
So in this movie, Godaways, the hidden border crisis, we actually take you to the border in a way that just hasn't been done, because the investigation was a 2-year investigation. The director, Charlotte Cuthbertson, who I worked with in Texas there, she's been stationed on the border for 2 years, and she's been up close and personal riding in the cars with the sheriffs while they're arresting human smugglers and criminals. And it's just there's so much action going on the border there every single day. From these arrests are happening anywhere from 5 a.m. in the morning to 2 a.m. again the next morning, and they're happening constantly. And a lot of these people have criminal records. And something that really shocked me was the number of Americans that are traveling from all across the country. Some fly in, some drive in, they borrow or rent cars or steal cars, and they are coming in and they are taking illegal immigrants across the border. They are participating in human smuggling to get them over the border. But those people may not be aware that quite often they're carrying criminals. And so when these people are arrested, very often the sheriffs and deputy sheriffs there are finding that there are people with criminal records being brought in who are pretending to be just regular immigrants, but they're not. They really are crossing illegally and often have a criminal background. And so many Americans, really shockingly, are participating in this, thinking they can make a few quick bucks, but they're getting caught, and that's what you see up close and personal in this movie.
Yeah, well, I've been thinking about that too, because I know Trump made some accusations around this and gotten himself in trouble for it, suggesting that, they empty out their prisons, they empty out their mental institutions, and they just send people here. We know that Cuba did it, of course, during the Cold War. They were emptying out prisons and mental institutions and sending the people they didn't want here. We also know in places like El Salvador, where the government is really cracking down on gangs, anybody who is fleeing the legal systems, well, like the border's wide open, why not come here? And it does raise some concerns that we're bringing in people who, again, there's a lot of legal immigration, there's a lot of amnesty, there's a very open process of bringing people in who are technically illegal but are just being bussed and shipped all over the country and have to, maybe have their trials to see if they actually are legal. But there's a clear reason why people would want to, let's say, cross in the dead of night or cross at times when they shouldn't be crossing and avoid that process when the border is as open as it is. Kay, I'm actually wondering, I know, actually, I've worked with Charlotte Cuthbertson, who worked on this with you for a long time. She and I are like long-term colleagues. I know she's like one of the most hardcore reporters I've ever met, especially her coverage of the border. What's some of the footage you've gotten? Like, what has really stood out to you looking through all of this?
So I agree with that, with your perspective on Charlotte's work. And when I saw what she was doing on the border, I started reporting with her there in 2021. She took me to different sites, and even when you see it for yourself up right before your eyes, it just changes your perspective. And that's what happened to me in 2021. And the most memorable experience for me was when I was with Charlotte around, it was after midnight, and we were filming cartel members smuggling women and children mostly across the river, the Rio Grande River, in the middle of the night. And in a period of just a couple of hours, we saw about probably at least 200 people coming over, and then they were processed by Border Patrol, who had set up a temporary station. Now, these were supposedly, legal immigrants. It's really very hard to say, but they were decoys, because just down the river, in the dark of night, there were other boats coming across that Border Patrol couldn't deal with. Very likely they had Godaways on there, or they had drugs, arms, who knows what else they were bringing across, while Border Patrol and National Guard were being overwhelmed with the people coming through. That was just one little thing that I experienced. And then so when I saw the footage that Charlotte had gathered from that time and up to just very recently, and everything that's gone in the movie, I really was quite honored to be part of the project, because you really can give people that front row seat where you feel like you're there, and that's just something that when you're on the border, as you would probably know yourself, because you've been there, you've seen it with your own eyes, and it's so different to just seeing a photo or reading a report, and when you can be taken there, and it changes your perspective. So we really wanted to make a movie that would take you there and be in that front seat with the sheriffs, with all of the arrests, and in the jails and what's going on there. And hopefully it'll help people really feel like they've been there and have a much better understanding of the problem that we're dealing with.
Yeah, well, I've talked to some of the sheriffs too. I know they have a very different take on everything they're watching, because for them, they see all sides of it. They see the women and children that the media like to focus on. They see the unaccompanied minors that the media like to focus on. They also see that the cartels are the ones doing the handoff, basically, for the amnesty process, which is really ironic that our government is working with the cartels on that, essentially. But they also see the criminal element, they see the drugs, they see the murders, they see the break-ins, they see the high-speed chases, and it's that side that I know really isn't shown to people. And from what I understand, it's that side that this movie is really focused on, that unseen crisis. I know it's even the title with all this. So, I mean, I guess just talking about that unseen crisis, how serious is this? Like, what's the big picture here?
Well, to give an example of the big picture, I'll tell you the small picture. So this film is focused on one small town that's right in a very open area of the border, and so many Godaways are coming through. And years ago, they would have prosecuted maybe 5 to 6 cases a month of border crime. There's always been some form of border crime down there, but now they're prosecuting up to 500 to 600 a month, right? Now, you think about the increase in that one part of the border. And this isn't just talking about, like you say, there's all the high speed car chases and everything, but it's not just talking about the illegal immigrants coming through, but the Americans participating in it. And they are having to arrest and prosecute these people that have traveled from other states to come involved in human smuggling. And that county, for example, has 3,000 residents roughly. In the last year, they've had to prosecute more than 5,000 people. So they're prosecuting more people in that county than live in that county. So this is one example of how severe the crisis is there. But those people, the illegal immigrants, we know where they're going because we ask them. Border authorities ask them. They're going to New York, they're going to Chicago, they're going to Vancouver, even Vancouver. They know exactly where they're going. So they're heading to your town somewhere, wherever you are in this nation. So you do need, people really need to know what's going on. And I think that this Kinney County in the southern Texas really gives an idea of what is going on. And then it'll help you understand if crime rates are going up in your city, why, how. Is it often they are being, there's many reports of crimes being carried out by illegal immigrants. And unfortunately, there's more and more of those that have been reported in the last 2 years. So we need to be asking why and looking to the source and looking at how to stop that. So that's sort of, yes, that's the hidden, unseen crisis that we're focusing on.
Oh, it's really important stuff. And again, the part that people aren't being shown usually. Kay, where can people see the documentary? When can they watch it?
It is being released on Friday, the 28th of July. And that's tomorrow. Yeah. Yep, tomorrow. And go to godawaysfilm.com to watch it, godawaysfilm.com, and it's made by Epoch TV. So you can check it out there.
Okay, always a pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much.